That brings us to item number 19, which is a proposed calendar for 2017, 2018. Mr. Bounds, shown in Exhibit D.
Mr. Chair, board members, we bring to you the 2017-2018 proposed school calendar. As you know, there's a zero sum. Students go to school 180 days. Teachers will teach or be in schools for 190, and our full-time employees will work for 240 days. And so we work with the calendar to try to make sure that we get the right mix of those days for all of our different staff members. We think we're bringing a great calendar to you this evening. It has been vetted with our Parent Advisory Council, our Faculty Advisory Council, and our school principals. And so this is actually the fourth iteration of this calendar that's been vetted and changed to accommodate for the recommendations of our staff, parents, and school leaders. I'll entertain any questions that you have.
Any question? Ms. Hammond.
Do we have, I was just thinking about with Hurricane Matthew, and we had that was really unusual where we had all those days. Do we have that built into this in case we have it's kind of the same thing we're doing this year?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, by law, we're required to have 3 inclement weather days built into the calendar. If you look at the bottom of the calendar, you'll see at the left side, we have 2 built-in days the first semester, and we have 4 built-in days the second semester. It gives the district tremendous flexibility in making up those days. Yes, ma'am.
Baumgartner.
Is it still the state law that you have to start school within a certain, like a week of each other? I know there was discussion about doing it, and now there's been discussion about
There's
being
tremendous discussion right now at the legislature. The current law says you cannot start school before the 3rd Monday in August, which would be the 21st of August. And so you'll note that this entire school calendar is about a week later than our current school calendar. And that's because by law we have to wait until the 21st of August, and that can't be waived by the state board. It has to be, it's law, it's statute. It would have to be changed by proviso.
Thank you.
Mr. Bounds, what is your projection of the times this will come before the board for action? I know you can continue to go before
It'll come
Parents
to the board
Advisory-
for action at the next board meeting.
Next meeting, okay.
Yes, sir.
And you're continuing, if somebody saw a glitch, let you know or a piece, and I'm sure the Parents Advisory Cabinet probably get another look at it and discussion
sir.
on it too.
We'll continue to look at it.
Great. Well, thank you very much for bringing it to us.
Thank you, sir.
That brings us to item number 20, which is the proposed revisions to Board Policy IKD Honor Roll, shown in Exhibit E. And I believe Dr. Melton is going to lead us in that.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Gant. If you all will join me with Exhibit E, this is let me see if it's picking up. Is that better? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bounds. This is to bring us in alignment with our recently passed from late in the summer, our state uniform grading scale. If you remember, we aligned to make sure that we were in compliance with the state grading scale, going from a 7-point scale to a 10-point scale. So the revisions that are brought to you tonight for discussion with the policy regarding honor rolls is simply to alter from a 90 down to an 80, because now an 80 is considered to be a B, as before it was up higher. So we're looking to change that by 10 points, which now the grading scale is a 10-point scale rather than a 7-point scale. Mr. Gant, that's my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions? Actually, I have a couple of questions.
Please do.
And I was just looking at the old policy versus the new policy, and just I look at the very first sentence, says the board, and it says it in both of them, the board wants to encourage. I think maybe the language might be the board encourages,
Okay.
possibly, because we might want to do a lot of things, but I think the board encourages. But, and you all look at that, but I think that might be a good change. And then the other thing that you can probably explain to me, in the old grading system, of course, it was a 7-point scale, I believe.
It was.
And for the honor roll, maintain a 90 and above in all subjects in order to be considered for honor roll. In the new policy, which I would consider at that time would be a high B.
Right.
And would you help me understand why we've gone from that 90? I understand the difference in scale, but we seem to be at the lower end of the scale on that.
That's true. In School District 5, we do not have the equivalent of a B plus or a B minus. We just do a simple B. So in some districts, they actually use pluses and minuses or those without either a plus or minus. So before, when we did have the 90, that was about the mid-range of a B, because a B was from an 85 to a 92. So as our teachers adjust to calibrating their grading, we'd rather make sure is it the letter, is it the numerical value? So our teachers are having to adjust to what was a B, is that still a B, or are we going to make sure that we change to align with the 10-point scale? We've had some discussion and consideration. Should we aim more towards an 85? What should we do to equate that? But since we don't have a B plus, a B minus, or just a B, our recommendation after much conversation was to start with the number that we've got in of an 80, just to see what your reaction of the board may be. Mr. Dean, our secondary director, has been heavily involved with various secondary staff members, including our coordinators, to see what their responses may be. We felt like an 80 is safe, but do we want to be safe? Do we want to be a little more aggressive to make it a higher B that we want to target? So that's open for discussion. We can certainly be responsive to the requests that you all have.
Right. If we had the desire to get a higher B, like we had in our old policy, and we don't have a plus and minus scale, how would you suggest that we do that? Or do you have, you want to study that?
I would like to take that back to another committee to ask for a little bit of feedback. You know, my opinion would just be my own, and I'd rather have the voice of many rather than the voice of one.
And I knew asking you the questions, you all had studied and looked at it, but it just seems to be a little bit more diluted than I think School District 5 would probably want to.
That's a fair
do.
concern.
Well, would you mind you all studying that? We're just in
I'd be happy to.
discussion, and that's just something that sort of jumped at me.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Warner?
No, I was just going to, I think we talked about it before. I mean, what's the motivation here to go from a 90 to an 80? I mean, that's not for you to answer. It's just a rhetorical question, I guess. But it seems like not a whole lot of motivation for, I mean, an 80 is an 80, but which most of us can probably do. But it just seems like Mr. Gant said, it's awfully low to me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, Ms. Hammond?
I'd love to weigh in on this. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we definitely need to look at it. One thing I wanted to ask you, and then I want to make a comment on Mr. Gantz as a teacher in the classroom with it. I mean, I'm watching kids with it, and it's not, you do feel like they don't strike. It's almost like, oh man, a 60's passing. Wow. So they just, you know, it's sad in a way. And they're not every kid, but it does tend to give them more leeway. It's just like if I tell you, you don't have to be here till 10 after 6, and you're going to worry and get here. You know, it's a mindset that I can make this low and I'm still passing. And so but I mean, it's out of our hands. I know we did it, but one of the reasons, Mr. Gant, was to be competitive with other states, because a lot of teachers felt like you do. But I wanted to ask, with this new grading scale, how does it affect our AP kids? I do want to know that. Do they have to have they get the higher weight? Do they have to make a higher thing, or that 90 to 100 is still the A in AP?
That we still have, and I don't have that conversion chart with me tonight, the policies that you all passed back in the summer, we brought to you the weighted scale of what AP and IB do compared to CP.
I can look
So
back.
we still, in that conversion chart, we can certainly get that to you for your review again. That policy is currently in effect now. So we've got the grading policies in effect that have been revised. It's just the honor roll. And for those that aren't informed, as you all are, Mr. Haltwanger brought up the idea of what an 80 is compared to what a 90 was. A 90 in the past was a solid B, a strong B. If we had the B plus, it'd be comparable with the B plus.
And 93 was the A.
Right. So now that we've gone to a 10-point scale to align with the state scale, an 80 is a B now, just as you've said, Ms. Hammond. So if we want to aim towards a higher level of a B, we can certainly adjust that. We just haven't defined what a B plus is in School District 5 by policy, so we wanted to make sure that we brought it forth for discussion.
But we have the right to do that, right? The honor roll can be,
You could have an honor, you could make them be a 95.
You sure
or
could.
a
This is a local
99.
policy.
well, we might not do that too.
You can set where you want the honor roll to be.
I do like rigor.
Ms. Baumgartner?
Actually, in talking about the numbers, I kind of like 87 even more so than 85, because 85 sort of,
In the middle.
but when you get 87, you're starting to be more into the line of an honor. So we're all kind of saying we want higher, but I'm going even higher, Robert.
Well, then I have confidence that Dr.
Robert's
Melton
going by
is
his
going
grade.
to take a,
Mr.
Right, Robert.
I have confidence Dr. Melton's going to look at this. I think you hear the concern around the table.
I certainly do.
Now, as a student, in my past, in my high school, I'd have loved that 80 to been what it was, and then
Absolutely.
still been able to say that I was honor roll.
My head will-
But somehow I'd love to see us set that median area to give a little more to shoot for. And you all help us figure out how possibly to do that without penalizing folks.
Well, your concerns will strengthen our concerns, so
Great.
we very much appreciate your suggestions.
Great. Anything else? Okay. Well, that concludes our agenda tonight. And I remind everybody that our next meeting will be December the 12th at Lee Part Elementary School. And with that, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn. Ms. Baumgardner,
I move that we adjourn.
have a second. Mr. White? Thank you very much. Any discussion on adjourning? If not, we stand adjourned, and we want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Whoop. Vote, sorry. Voting, that's right. It's all about voting this week. All right, I apologize. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Thank you all.